Happy New Year. Welcome to the Shuffle Squad. Zach Lesage here. Today we're going to be doing a special video, the top 10 best decks of 2024. Now this is going to be similar to my top 10 best decks that I do weekly. Check those out every single Friday right here on the Shuffle Squad. But I'm going to be covering over the best deck of each month in my opinion. Maybe those are decks that have won a major tournament or have done incredibly well in that month of Pokemon. So this is going to cover from January 2024 all the way up until December 2024. With lots of major events happening around the world, there's going to be a lot of decks, maybe some old favorites, maybe some friendly rivalries with some decks that you might have forgot about in the past. But this is an opportunity to celebrate the year of Pokemon, and I'm so excited to share this video with you. And of course, cap it off, and maybe we do this on the yearly tradition on New Year's. I think that sounds like a plan to me. So, all the lists are going to be available in the pinned comment below. You can copy and paste it right into live. Some decks might have got updated. I mean, they're going to be their best decks in that particular format. So we might be looking at some pre-rotation decks for January, February, and March. Then when we had our rotation in April, we'll start going on to a more modern format where all those cards are legal. But I'm sure some of those decks have been updated as of recent regionals, or maybe some have even fallen off in the metagame. We'll have to find out. Give this video a like, share, subscribe with your friends, and let us know in the comments what your favorite deck of 2024 was, or just put any comment. It really does help boost the YouTube algorithm. We're going to kick this off with January 2024. So without further ado, let's jump into it. This is the best deck of January 24. Starting off hot with Lost Tina, this deck absolutely dominated the Pokemon TCG during the timeline that it saw success in the Paradox Rift formats. At the start, not too many players were really playing it in Paradox Rift because Paradox Rift was legal at the Latin American International Championships earlier in November. But really, Tina kind of got its legs after the holidays and went on a tear to make a bunch of top cuts, winning regionals and more. I believe this is John Ang's winning list from Portland regionals, and Tina really is as dominant as Regidrago is to current day. Now Tina V-Star is all about Lost Zone box engine, so we're going to be using cards like Comfey and Chloris's Experiment to pitch cards into the Lost Zone, and then eventually use Mirage Gate or powerful attacks like Cramorant, Sableye, or even Star Requiem on Tina V-Star to scale the damage and energies as the game progresses. Now, we're able to hit for 280 damage, which is enough to knock out a lot of these big basic Pokemon, such as Roaring Moon EX or Chen Pao EX. But it's also enough that you can use Star Requiem to just knock out a Charizard EX that was very popular at the time as well. You can see that there's a lot of powerful cards that have since rotated, such as Path to the Peak, Battle VIP Pass. And these are really cards that that we miss sorely in this format. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm happy to be without a format with Path to the Peak, but if Path to the Peak was legal in the format, I still might be playing Lost Tina. It was enough to really like kind of knock Lost Tina out of the metagame post-rotation. So again, this is a pre-rotation list before the rotation happened, I believe in March, April 2024. So that's why there are these cards legal. These cards are not currently legal to this day. But again, this video is a whole kind of heartfelt love for the year of 2024 of Pokemon. The good, the bad, the ugly, all the best decks. And all these lists are going to be available in the pinned comment below. You can copy and paste them. A deck like this is going to be expanded legal, not current standard legal. So just remember that if you're trying to pull up to your Pokemon TCG League. But it is one of those kind of all-time kind of big decks and formats. So if you are trying to retro build a format of a year, this would be a great video to kind of check out in the future. If you need any of these cards for these decks, check out our sponsors at Kayfabe Cards and PTCGO Store. Both links are available in the description alongside with all of our other sponsors. Let's jump into February. Moving on from Lost Zone Tina is still seeing success in tournaments in February, but Gardevoir is really the deck that I think had a lot of success. And it's one of those things where, when possible, I try not to cover back-to-back decks, especially if we're going in the same format. I'd rather cover more decks, give them a little bit more success. Now, Ryan Antonucci won the Knoxville, Tennessee Regional Championships with this list. Over 1,000 players in that tournament, and this is a pre-rotation Guardy. So if you've seen some of the Gardevoir lists from some of the best players in the game, like Henry Chow, Josh Frank, you might be like, hey, why is there this old Gardevoir in there? Well, Shining Arcana allowed you to accelerate energies, and it was one of the main attackers of the deck. So we had the Gardevoir, we had Screamtail, we had Zacian, but we also had Mew that allowed us to kind of have some extra consistency there. Lost Zone box was still quite big, especially with Lost Tina. So you had both Manaphy and Jirachi. We had a Worker to bump Path to the Peak so that we were able to use our Psychic Embrace. Battle VIP pass up in here, Level Ball being able to search out those Kirlias. Heck, we even had the Mirage Step Kirlia, which is quite cool. So really a lot of different cards here that were making Gardevoir really work, hitting those big numbers, trying to knock out Pokemon such as Tina V-Star and trying to knock out a Charizard EX here and there. I mean, I think Gardevoir EX is really one of the best decks of all time for the most part. It's seen success pre-rotation, post-rotation. Almost every single set, it's been a top 8 contender at regionals and more. So I think that this build, again, focusing on using refinement, discarding some energies, accelerating them with Psychic Embrace, putting those damage counters to use on our Pokemon like Screamtail, and getting big damage with single prize card Pokemon really made this deck for what it's worth. And having Iono and Research and stuff to really kind of churn through your deck quickly. This Gardevoir list is just a really well defined version of the deck from Paradox Rift. Let's see what we had going on in March. In March, we had Mew VMAX kind of say its farewell to the metagame, and it really saw a lot of success throughout the entirety of its play. Being one of the only VMAXs featured on this list when we see a lot of Pokemon V, EX, and V-Star, Mew VMAX is incredibly powerful in the same way that Regidrago is powerful, because you could choose one of your other Pokemon in play's attacks and use it as this attack, copying either Genesect V or Mew V, maybe even copying a Max Miracle, Meloetta, Ice Cube, and with those Fusion Strike energies and Path of the Peak, Lost City, being able to use your power tablets. This is really a well-defined archetype over a period of a long time, and I think Mew VMAX is really just kind of one of those decks that it's been iconic. It's seen success at the World Championships. It's had a League Battle deck printed about it, and this is Owen Kammerman's winning list from the special event over in Utrecht, the Netherlands, and it's just, I think it kind of puts the cherry on top of a format. This is right before the rotation. Paldean Fates may or may not have been legal. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. It gets a little bit hazy. Limitless does put it that it's battle styles to Paradox Rift, but I really think that Mew VMAX kind of topped off an kind of format where we had Fusion Strike, Rapid Strike, Single Strike Pokemon. It was able to beat a Roaring Moon, a pure dark type deck in the finals of this regionals. And maybe it's because it used Meloetta as a single prize card attacker to get a knockout against 2 prize card Pokemon, and used Power Tablet effectively, and was able to use Psychic Leap to kind of hide behind a single prize card Pokemon, and Disruption and Path to the Peak. Like, when you think about a deck that has it all, this is a very technical deck that's able to kind of roll through, draw a bunch of cards, kind of very unique to itself. So I'm really happy to include it in this kind of top of 2024. But I think the format's going to drastically change between March and April, because April, that's in between our rotations. So no more battle styles at all, and we're going to lose all of our E block cards. We're going to switch over to an F block on formats starting in April. So we'll have to see how everything plays out from there, but this is really where the rest of the list is going to look a lot more modern, but it's going to grow as time progresses. In April, with our rotation, we have Charizard EX coming out strong. Charizard EX gaining a lot from Temporal Forces, mainly being a gain Prime Catcher. We gained A-Specs and Temporal Forces. That really made a lot of decks slightly better. And Charizard EX not having to deal with Path to the Peak and Lost Zone Tina as much. Really, Path to the Peak's just gone. You can kind of play Buddy Buddy Poppin', whereas Battle VIP Pass is completely gone for other decks. Charizard got enough buffs where it was just the it deck for a moment. And we have the greatest of all time, Tord Reklev, playing this deck to win the European International Championships. I believe this is at least Tord's second time winning the European International Championships, and so many other top cuts along. So if the GOAT is going to be playing Charizard, why not? The goal of Charizard is going to be very similar to today, although the structure might look a little bit different. We're still going Rare Candy, Charizard, accelerating our energies with Infernal Rain. We're still attacking with Burning Darkness, but Dust Noir isn't out yet. We don't have access to Briar. We're still searching out things with Pidgeot. We have a Barrel engine because since Serendipity doesn't exist, we're very, very, very worried about cards like Iono and Roxanne. We still have a Jirachi in this deck and Manaphy for a lot of purposes because we're worried about Radiant Greninja and Lost Zone Box. We have a Roxanne of ourselves, which I think is completely fine. Cards like Iono and Roxanne have since kind of dropped down in competitive play. Not to say that they're not played at all, but it's really because of Serendipity and players being able to draw out of it. We have Team Yell Cheer so that you're able to kind of get around those Professor Turos, and you're able to get out of any kind of control situation when it comes down to it. And I mean, that's really where the core of this deck is. Everything else looks pretty standard. I played Charizard EX for myself as well at this event. I made day 2. I had Regieleki to get around control. I think Tor did a little bit better with the Team Yell Cheer and the Professor Turos, really solidifying his deck building again and really proving to everyone that he's the best player in the game currently. Now, Charizard EX, still really just an incredibly powerful deck. So when you have one of the best players or the best player playing Charizard EX and it's the best deck for that tournament, probably going to see a magic combination. So Charizard EX really taking the advantage of the post-rotation format, temporal forces, piloted with a really good player, a really good list, and that's why we have it on top. Let's see what we have going on in May. May might be springtime, starting to be summertime for many, but for a select group of players, they kept it cold, absolutely frigid cold with Chen Pao. The list that we're looking at here is Regan Retzloff's list. He was one of the most successful players with Chen Pao for a while, and Chen Pao was really kind of dubbed as a deck that beat Zard, taking advantage of both Buddy Poppin, Prime Catcher, Charizard being pretty much the BDIF. Chen Pao countered it, and it had an absolute tear for a few months right after the European International Championships. I think that the Cypher Maniac's code breaking, also being able to put cards on top of your deck, manipulating those with Pokestop and drawing them with Barrel and Radiant Greninja is really cool. So Chen Pao really being able to search through your deck for some water energies, loading up those energies with a rare candy Baxcalibur, accelerating all those energies and using Hail Blade to knock out whatever is in sight. When we're talking about dealing with Pokemon that have 300 plus HP, something like Hail Blade being able to scale its damage is fantastic. And of course, we have Iron Hands EX that we can always load up those energies on. And with one lightning energy, we can use Ampy very much and knock out a single prize card Pokemon to draw 2 prizes. So kind of having answers to pretty much everything in the meta. I think Chen Pao is really just kind of that deck. And it was that deck for a while. Like, Chen Pao is not really seen as much success today. But during this time, Chen Pao was easily a top 3 deck in format, and for this month, definitely the best deck in format. Now, this is our last tournament before the North American International Championships, where May NAIC happened in June. So we're also going to be seeing Twilight Masquerade, probably the most impactful Scarlet Violet set thus far, giving us new archetypes, and really a big fan for collectors, some beautiful cards in that set as well. So we will be jumping into our June deck up next. At NAIC, you might have expected to see a bunch of Raging Bolts. Well, Raging Bolt really wasn't a deck then, even though it kind of was birthed out of Twilight Masquerade and we're able to play Teal Mask Ogerpon. And you might be like, hey, why didn't no one really play Regidrago at this event? Well, Regidrago wasn't really even thought of beyond a few players making some decent placements. It wasn't really a full-formed archetype at that point, at least not to the masses. It was more of a rogue play to the NAIC. Gardevoir EX actually took up 6 out of the top 8 spots at the North American International Championships. The list we're going to be looking at right here is Henry Chow. Not only did they top 8 this event, they went on to win the Baltimore Regional Championships a few short months later after the World Championships, with our newest format being Shrouded Fable. Now, Twilight Masquerade didn't really add a whole bunch of this deck beyond Monkey Dory. Monkey Dory being able to play some damage counters onto your opponent's Pokemon, but wait, you have Psychic Embrace, right? You're able to move those damage counters that you're able to Psychic Embrace to your opponent's Pokemon. So that's why this deck plays Dark Energies. Henry went with an interesting build with Hyper Aroma to search out all those different Pokemon to make this a turbo consistent version of the deck. And we can see that there is the Flutter Mains that we can attack with, the Screamtail, the Cresselia, the Mimikyu. Overall, really just an interesting take on the list across the board. But Gardevoir just definitely dominated. All the best players in the game seem to be playing this deck. It didn't actually win this tournament. We saw Andrew Hedrick win the tournament with Lost Zone Box, but Gardevoir's overall success here and just absolute domination of the North American International Championships, I believe, is worthy of the spot for June. Now, when we're going from June to July, it should be noted that there weren't any major events in July during this time, so a lot of the results are going to be very similar to the North American International Championships, but I'm not going to give you Gardevoir twice in a row. We're actually going to move on to a different deck. Let's check out the results for July. In July, we did not have any major tournaments. We didn't even have a new set. Now, that doesn't mean that we didn't have tournaments at all. We had local tournaments. I remember playing in local events, I think even League Cups, and Andrew Hedrick's Lost Zone Box deck was everywhere. So if you didn't have an answer to this deck, you probably wanted to have an answer to the deck. I think I was playing Ancient Box because I just made top 128 at the North American International Championships. Ancient Box has a really good matchup against Lost Zone Box, but Lost Zone Box being able to use Comfey, Colress, Lost Vacuum to get cards into the Lost Zone, very similar to the Lost Tina deck that we covered a few months back. And you're able to scale your damage with Cramorant, Sableye, and you can also use Mirage Gate on your other Pokemon, so you can get an Ampy very much. You can maybe use Iron Thorn, shut off your opponent's abilities, move energies elsewhere, and of course, you could use Radiant Greninja to snipe your opponent's Pokemon. This well-constructed deck that's been around since the beginning of when, since Lost Origin first came out, is now continuously seeing kind of changes in the metagame. And with players not really focused on adding Jirachi to their deck as much since this deck kind of fell down, seemed like the perfect timing to play it for the North American International Championships. The finals between Stefan Ivanov and Andrew Hedrick at the North American International Championships, the last major event, was actually one of the coolest finals I've ever watched. A lot of really fantastic plays, strong counter plays, and really, since it's the deck of the summer and the next tournament we're looking at is Worlds, a lot of people just default took the best deck for North American International Championships and decided to play it throughout the summer. Now, July is right before our August World Championships that we held in Honolulu, Hawaii. We're also receiving Shrouded Fable. Not necessarily the biggest set, just a mini set, but there's definitely some impactful cards in that set, such as Pheasantipede, Dust Noir, Night Stretcher, and a handful of others. What's really going to take off? Well, it's probably going to surprise every single person, but we'll jump into it. Let's check out our best deck in August. And also, if you haven't got a chance already to give this video a like, I really do appreciate everyone if they could give this video a like. Double check to see if you subscribe to the channel. And again, let us know if you like this video or not so far, or if there's any other content you want to see on the Shuffle Squad. August was a weird month in Pokemon. We saw Iron Thorns win our World Championships, but largely Regidrago was probably the most successful deck at the tournaments. Now, I was like, do I put Regidrago or do I put Iron Thorns? And I think this is where I decided to go with Iron Thorns. Iron Thorns did win our World Championships. How could I not feature the deck that won our Masters World Championships in the absolute, in the absolute winning deck for August, right? I think that's what had to take precedence, and that's what I decided to go with. We had Fernando Cifuentes Liss, an iconic win from Chile, and being able to use initialization to shut off some Pokemon power, some abilities, and really having this disruption, this gust effects. Everything seemed pretty well positioned for this deck, so a really incredibly smart play from a select few players that played Iron Thorns EX. Now, where it got really weird was Fernando played against Ian Robb in the top cut of the World Championships. Ian Robb is running hot and is one of the best players in the game of all time. Beats Fernando, proceeds to do an action that gets them a game loss from the tournament, and Fernando actually gets to move on at that point. That's where this World's controversy comes from. I don't want to necessarily comment on it now because it's definitely water under the bridge for many. And I mean, Fernando won Worlds. Ian didn't win Worlds. I'm sure Ian wish he didn't do whatever he did. I'm sure Fernando's like, hey, it's a weird moment because a lot of people are kind of stripping them of their Worlds win. They won Worlds regardless of however it turned out. Ian was probably poised to win the World Championships with Regidrago, but that's all. You can kind of check on any kind of whatever. Regardless, Iron Thorns EX did win the event. I'm capping it off with the Masters World Championship win with Iron Thorns EX. And we're kind of going to see the metagame shift from this point going forward. Iron Thorns never really saw the same level of success. It kind of went back to niche deck. But we'll have to see how the rest of the metagame kind of reacts to Shrouded Fable and upcoming sets as well. After the World Championship win with a big Lightning deck, you might be surprised to see Lugia V-Star kind of kick in here and see all the success that it did. Well, Lugia V-Star is really taking advantage of people kind of invalidating that Iron Thorns win. Iron Thorns being kind of a flash in the pan whenever a control deck kind of enters in, it quickly enters out as players find ways to counter it. And with all the turbo aggressive decks that also did well at Worlds, such as Turbo Roaring Moon, Miraidon, Raging Bolts, Lugia V-Star can hold its own against pretty much any deck that's not Lightning type, and of course holds its own against Regidrago V-Star as well, especially with that V-Guard energy. Kieran Vera from Toronto, one of the best players in the game, saw a crazy run with Lugia V-Star, pretty much making top 8 at most tournaments that they played this deck at, and using Lugia V-Star to discard those Archeops in their discard pile, accelerating those energies after summoning them back into play with Lugia's V-Star power, and then loading up energies on Chinchino, Weird Ear, Iron Hands, or even a Blood Moon if necessary. I think this is really just a solidified deck list. Didn't see any change in set yet in our North American metagame. And we're going to really see how the rest of the metagame reacts after this, because we are going to see a new set and we are getting pretty close to current. I mean, this is September of 2024, so only a few short months ago. We're only December, right? So it can't be that different. That we're going to see a lot of different decks and celebrate those decks as we kind of go on throughout here. So great job to Kieran. Lugia V-Star really been one of those decks that's seen success forever. Let's see what we had going on in October. In October, we saw Caleb Gedimer win the Louisville Regional Championships with Raging Bolt EX. Now, Raging Bolt EX really being a counter to all the Regidragos that have seen success in our Shrouded Fable format, early Stellar Crown format, and it kind of started really popping off as just the best deck in format. You either play it or you counter it. And ever since like June, July, Regidrago has been one of the top 3 decks in format, and although we haven't featured it yet, we might be featuring it later on in this video. Try not to foreshadow too much, but Raging Bolt is really here to try to counter that deck and just really capitalize on the aggressiveness of the format. Being able to use Bellowing Thunder for 70 damage for each basic energy that you discard from your Pokemon in play, being able to pitch energies off of Teal Mask Ogre Pawn, maybe your Raging Bull after you use Professor Sada, and more. And really just being a turbo aggressive deck, very similar to Blacephalon GX Naganadel that I played back in 2018 to win a regional championships myself. I think that Raging Bull was an incredibly smart play, being able to use Bravery Charm to put it at that 290 HP point. Now, at this point, Regidrago can only hit for 280 damage, copying Giratina V-Star, a card that we've seen previously on this list as a Lost Zone deck on its own. Well, Raging Bull being able to kind of surpass that and not get knocked out really meant that this deck just kind of had its answers to the current metagame at this point. Now, it's nice to see Raging Bolt up here. I think it's great to see it win a regional championships. And it's also great to see a top player pilot it. Sure, we've seen a handful, but really Gedimer and his friends really played it all towards this regionals. All of them did pretty great. So it really shows that when top players play decks, sometimes they get results because they could see more lines of play than most. So really cool to see a deck like Raging Bolt that often gets dismissed as just some kind of meme deck or some kind of deck that can't really keep up with the rest, really did keep up with the rest. Now we're about to enter into November, literally last month at the time of creation of this video. So it's one of those things where we're pretty close to standard. We're also seeing another set getting out here. So Stellar Crown was really short-lived, only there for kind of some US regionals and the North American or the Latin American International Championships. We had Stellar Crown out there. Moving on up, we're going to have pretty much one more tournament, the Latin American International Championships and Stellar Crown. Then we're going to move on to the only tournaments that we had with Surging Sparks, which is shortly after that. Towards the tail end of the Stellar Crown format, we basically should have assumed that Regidrago was just going to be the best deck, period. We saw Brent Tonneson placed second at the Latin American International Championships and lost against a Regidrago V-Star deck in the finals. All of the finals was just Regidrago V-Star, and with that being the last event of Stellar Crown, really proved to us that Regidrago V-Star was kind of just becoming of that format. And I know that I was prepared for it. I actually chose my list to lose to Regidrago V-Star, which is probably the reason why I didn't advance to Day 2 at the Latin American International Championships. Hey, I'll take my 80 or 100 championship points that I earned from that tournament. Regidrago V-Star, since we haven't covered it so far, is copying Dragon-type Pokemon out of your discard pile, being able to use all these different Dragon Pokemon, such as Dragapult to snipe some damage counters around, Tina V-Star to hit for 280, and Kyurem to kind of bench wipe your opponents. We have Noctowl, since we have Teal Mask Ogerpon as a Terra-type Pokemon, to be able to search for whatever item cards we're really looking for. Now, Regidrago V-Star, needing some multiple energies, Grass, Fire, you're going to be using Teal Mask Ogerpon, loading up those energies, energy switching them over to your Regidrago V-Star. So being very similar to a Raging Bolt, but with more options. And with more options and being able to get back some of your cards from your discard pile, really giving a lot of power and opportunities to make some fantastic plays. I think that this is really just the list that I wanted to go with. Again, Brent Tonneson's from the Latin American International Championships. All the lists are available in the pinned comment below. It just kind of is the cherry on top of the format. Now, with Stellar Crown on its way out, we have Surging Sparks. Surging Sparks, I feel, added not too many cards. It added a Pikachu EX that can be used with Area Zero and Terra-type Pokemon. Not really much after that, right? I think that we didn't really see too much of a format shift. Like, people were like, hey, maybe we'll play Latias EX, maybe we'll play this card, maybe we'll play that card. Didn't really change too much for our format. So we're going to see what we had in December. Now, if you've been keeping up with Pokemon over the past month, or you've been watching my top 10 best decks weekly videos recently, you might have seen this deck on there, but we'll jump into it. The final deck of 2024 in December 2024 is Regidrago again. I couldn't put Regidrago here when it just won the Toronto Regional Championships and really just proved itself to be the BDIF once again. Currently rocking all these League Cups, League Challenges, Toronto Regionals. We have Cal Connor's list, and the only card that got added into this list was Alolan Executor EX. Alolan Executor EX being able to use Swinging Sphene. Swinging Sphene is really kind of the answer to Caleb Gedimer's Bravery Charm Raging Bolt deck, because you could just flip a coin and knock out one of your opponent's Pokemon in the active or one of your opponent's basic Pokemon on the bench. We actually saw Cal Connor use Swinging Sphene for the game at Toronto Regionals to win in the finals. Now, you might be like, hey, coin flips probably suck in Pokemon, right? Like, what happens if you get like a result you don't want? Well, if your opponent has a 2 prize card basic in the front and a 2 prize card basic Pokemon in the back, a lot of times we're just trying to scale our prize cards as we progress through the game and try to draw 2 prize cards per turn. That's pretty much all we could ever ask in a 2 prize card format. We can't really draw many more unless we're knocking out multiple Pokemon with Kyurem. In this case, we're able to just take 2 prize cards with Swinging Sphene. Regardless of the result, maybe we have a preferred result, but 2 prizes is 2 prizes, right? If you win the game by knocking out a Squawkabilly or your opponent's Charizard EX, doesn't matter which one you knock out. And that's really where a lot of Pokemon comes down to. A lot of it comes down to planning those prize cards out appropriately, so you don't have to worry about how to end games off as much with boss's orders, or that you're just able to take the dub pretty easily. So we have Regidrago capping off this season. As we look into 2025, we have Prismatic Evolutions, and as much as it's really only adding Mewtwo and it's adding in Regigigas into the format, that's really changing the format a lot more than we previously anticipated it would. Then, of course, we're going to be seeing the Partners Pokemon TCG set. I don't think it has an English full name, but cards like Hop's Zacian and Iono's Bellibolt and all these cool cards, really some cool concepts across the board, probably some new archetypes, and of course our 2024-2025 seasonal rotation that's going to be coming up soon as well. So when I cover this video next year, it's going to be quite a different format. So if you're watching currently, you might be like, hey, is our format going to change? Yeah, probably going to change a lot. So pick up some cards from Prismatic Evolutions, pick up some cards from any upcoming sets, prepare yourself for the rotation, and let me close things out. And that's what we got going on for a year of Pokemon. Were there any decks that you think I missed? Were there any decks that you think were better in some months? I mean, there were some decks that I was really close to changing it up. And I mean, there's the controversial 2024 World Championships, Iron Thorns or Regidrago. But a lot of the cases, I had to go with the deck that maybe won the event, the deck that overall saw the most success at the event. And I mean, again, a lot of these videos are going to come from a kind of half data, half opinion. And I mean, I've been playing Pokemon for 20 years, so I hope that my opinion is an expert enough opinion to kind of provide a video like this for our community. As for me, I'm going to be hanging out with some of my friends out here in Montreal. It's going to be an absolute fantastic new year. So if you're celebrating, stay safe. If you're not, that's totally cool too. I appreciate all y'all watching this video. And if you're trying to catch up more with me, double check in the description. You can get access to my Metafy group for all access to my deck lists. I've even started doing some Prismatic Evolutions, so you can join my Metafy group, or you can get a coaching session with me to start off your 2025 right. With San Antonio coming up and a handful of other events globally, I do have the availability to help you grow on your Pokemon journey and maybe even see you at the World Championships along the way. I'm going to continue to push out content this week, so be sure to stay tuned for more great content, including some early Prismatic Evolutions lists this week and more. I'll catch up with all y'all later. Happy New Year's. Much love from myself and the Shuffle Squad to all of y'all, and I'll catch up with you in 2025. Peace out and have a great day. Want to support the Shuffle Squad? Be sure to check out all of our sponsors in the description to pick up Pokemon TCG singles, sealed, and PTCG live codes. You made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching this entire video from the Shuffle Squad. Honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, we appreciate each and every person that supports our content, watches what we have going on every single day, every single week, even from time to time, and continuously allows us to have a forum to project our creative content towards the Pokemon TCG community. So if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and even leave a comment to help boost the YouTube algorithm. That being said, we'll catch you with our next video. Thanks again. Take it easy.